So, welcome to this session on EDK2 platforms. Whatever they've done to try to find the smell of popcorn in this room, which was mentioned before, seems to be something to my airways. Hopefully I'll get through the presentation without problems, but just an early warning. So the basic story here, having quite a short slot. OpenPlatformPkg is dead, and long live EDK2 platforms. The thing that was OpenPlatformPkg, the support code that was in there has now been migrated away, and the OpenPlatformPkg repository is now to be considered read-only and a historical document, apart from one branch that support is still submitting patches to. But that's a special case, and that's all going away in a short while, and it's related to other stuff. All this code has now instead been adopted by TianoCore and moved into the official repositories. One's called EDK2 platforms and the other one EDK2 non-OSI. And as part of this change, we're also going to migrate all of the existing platform support in EDK2 into this new structure rather than keeping it in the main EDK2 repository. If you've seen my talk at these events over the years, you'll have noticed that I've pointed out many times that the way hardware platforms were included in EDK2 was completely random and all over the place. So rather than trying to figure out some way about which platforms should be in the main repository and which shouldn't, what we've gone with is basically all hardware platforms will go into EDK2 platforms and will only keep the virtual platforms in EDK2. We will also keep, we refer to it as industry standard drivers in EDK2. So all of the sort of host controller profiles, your PCIe support, your AHCI, your XHCI, those bits, that'll still be in there. And using the sort of the sneaky words of industry standard, I've decided that ARM prime cells are industry standards. So we're going to keep those in the main repository as well. But apart from that, the entire rest of this talk is going to be about the new repositories. So here's a pretty slide I stole from Matteo. Basically, in the olden days, before there was OpenPlatformPkg, you either had, if you were sort of a commercial platform vendor, then you might be working together with some kind of OEM, and you might be working with some BIOS vendors, and then you'd get different drivers and platform code and CPU support packages, and you stick all of that either on something you got from your BIOS vendor or on top of EDK2, which to some extent the BIOS vendors were including anyway, and it was kind of all a bit of a mess. With OpenPlatformPkg, I sort of at least created a place where we could stick all of the stuff that people want to have open source rather than just pulling in from all kinds of directions. And now with EDK2 platforms and the EDK2 non-OSI, you still have the option of going the old way if you want to work with BIOS vendors to make things happen. But we're also giving a sort of end-to-end solution for people who do want to open source all or most of their platform. So, EDK2 platforms, that's the first repository. It's an official TianoCore repository to hold only open source components. That's the reason for the split between platforms and non-OSI. It lives under the TianoCore area on GitHub. It's called EDK2 platforms. The master branch, which is really the only one I care about, holds all of the platforms that are actively tracking EDK2 master, i.e. if any of those fail to build due to changes in master, they will be expected to be updated and fixed so that they will function again. And if that's not kept up, then that's the point at which we start looking at, does this platform need to be in this repository anymore, or do we need to get rid of it? We also have a definition that you can have a sort of develop branch if you're working on getting a platform upstream and it looks like it's going to be a long and difficult process. So rather than just going through iteration over iteration over iteration, then you can have a development branch. You can pick that this is all going to be against whichever commit of EDK2 main, and sort of giving you a public working space to deal with getting your platform upstream. Stable branches. Intel seem very keen on having their platforms built specifically against UDK releases. So rather than tracking EDK2 master, they will be platforms that are explicitly intended to only build against UDK releases. That gives them a bit more comfort that this is actually going to be a viable way for people to build firmware for their platforms. I think if we do this properly within a year or two, they're going to accept that no, everything should just be a master, and that's fine. But for now, it keeps them happy to have the option that they can have their stable branches. And as I at least suggested on the previous slide, all new open source device drivers go into this platform, into this repository rather than into the main EDK2 repository. EDK2 non-OSI is the mechanism we use to have either binary only or things with strange licenses that aren't really compatible with the TianoCore working set otherwise. So it's things like binary only drivers, it's things like system controller firmware images that we don't have the source code for. And this is just to basically make it possible for some of the EDK2 contributors to work with this. So we have certain contributors who, by their company, are explicitly not permitted to touch anything that has a binary module in its repository. And this means that they don't have to worry about it, and they can still contribute to the open source stuff if they're happy to do so. Key point about this is because it is a very special thing about special things that don't conform to normal licenses and distribution methods. There's no default license to this repository, so each sort of subtree or each module, if they're different between different modules from the same vendor, needs to specify which license applies for those sets of files. So the practical changes. With OpenPlatformPkg, I kind of just treated that as if it was another package inside EDK2. So basically all your configuration files would prefix OpenPlatformPkg / whatever the thing was. But we've had an addition, an added feature to the EDK2 build system a year or two ago that's called packages path, which means you can just tell the build command to go through and look in multiple directories to find a path match for the thing you're looking for. So we're using this extensively in this new system, which makes typing config files slightly less tedious. This also gets rid of the whole submodule or subtree management that some people use to deal with OpenPlatformPkg. So for release management of this new system, you're going to need to either move to something like MR or Repo. I guess a lot of people are working with Android, so they're already comfortable with Repo, and that's probably what I'm going to be using for Linaro releases going forward. Because this is now formally adopted set of platforms, we're not going to go hide the code review on the Linaro UEFI list anymore. So all patches, both for platforms and for drivers, are to be submitted to the EDK2 develop mailing list. Linaro UEFI will still be there. If you're a bit unsure about the quality and state of your patches and you want an even friendlier place for people to look at them before you go to EDK2 develop, sure, you can do that, but basically anything that goes into the tree needs to have gone across the EDK2 develop. And in order for basically those EDK2 developers who don't care about public platform support, we've defined this convention that all patches for EDK2 platforms need to have a subject prefix that specifies EDK2 platforms. So all patches for EDK2 non-OSI need to have a subject prefix that states that it's EDK2 non-OSI. One thing I haven't added here, but I probably should, is if you have huge binary drivers, then please put them in a Git tree and generate the patches with --no binary, because that becomes a bit tedious to deal with over email. And this all means, so in package path, your complete platform image will be created by joining across components from different repositories. And then at the final line, it's just describing the path layout changes. Some of them are just because I could not be bothered to bike shed about how we wanted to do this, and there was a proposal already for changing the directory layout structure in EDK2, and that's probably still coming. So basically, if you had out of 3 OpenPlatformPkg platforms, it's going to be a bit tedious to migrate it across, because you're going to have to change all instances of platforms to platform, and so on. But sorry about that, but I couldn't deal with the bike shedding. These are the platforms that we've migrated over already. So based on the AMD Seattle, we have the Overdrive and Overdrive 1000, we have the Cello board, ARM, we have the Juno and the Versatile Express platforms, including the FPPs and foundation model. My Silicon, we have the D02, D03, D05. We have HiKey to the same state that was in OpenPlatformPkg, which means it's not the complete platform port, but it's a start, and we're going to work on getting the full support up as well. From Marvell, we have the Armada 7000 support, so the foundation, you could say, for bigger things. And then we have the Chaos Key USB random number generator driver is now also in the public pre, and that wasn't in OpenPlatformPkg, so that's new. Platforms coming up, so we're going to move all of the existing hardware platforms in EDK2 across, so that means BeagleBoard, the ValueView, Quark, and the bits that I haven't moved across from Juno and Versatile Express yet. The Marvell Armada 8000, basically both the development platform and Macchiato bin. I expect that to show up soon. The SocialNext Synchroizer platform you saw demonstrated this morning. Those patches have already been sent out for review, and I expect more to show up as Art and SocialNext help cleaning that up. And I've been told that the Miniport 3 is aiming to hit this straight away as well. As you may know, I find the EDK2 build system a bit arcane and tedious, and I cannot be bothered to figure out how to come up with the correct command line for build each platform with the correct toolchain version every time. So I set up these tools called UEFI tools, and now updated them to deal with this new system. But rather than having everyone's existing platform builds breaking if anyone's using them, I renamed the script and reworked it a bit. So instead of UEFI build, there's an EDK2 build.sh. Instead of platforms.config, there's an EDK2 platforms.config. There's a lot more flexibility with the build environment, but unless you have all of your source repositories checked out in the current working directory, you do now also need to explicitly point out where you have your EDK2, where you have your EDK2 platforms, where you have your EDK2 non-OSI. It does mean that you can also have your build output somewhere completely different from your source checkout. And while I was doing this, I figured out it wasn't actually too hard to add support for building, specifying on the command line which architecture you want to build for. So if you have a single driver or application that you want to build multiple architectures, you can just do that on one command line. So the short version for how to test and verify that this all works for you is on this slide. clone these repositories, run this command. Depending on your compiler version, I noticed that a couple of the platforms break, but that's something that we obviously need to fix and get sorted. But that should be all you need to do to get started with EDK2 platforms. And a bit of a change of subject, but other thing I kind of needed to mention while I was standing here talking at Connect. We've had a revision of the TianoCore contribution agreement. Used to be you had to tag every patch you sent out with TianoCore contribution agreement version 1.0. You now need to tag it with version 1.1. The only real change is that it explicitly states that any documentation contributions must be under the FreeBSD documentation license. Those of us who come from companies that may have legal teams with strong opinions about contributions and licensing may want to go and revisit any existing internal approval. But I will say that I gave our legal department, or rather I gave someone else the task to give our legal department the diff of the license text file, and the response was basically, why are you bothering us with this? This is not a problem. So it shouldn't be too bad.
I think Ghislaine's far more practical than most.
It does help that we have Ghislaine Lovejoy, yes, that shortcuts a lot of this. Right, that's all I actually have in my wall of text and stream of words. So are there any questions in the room? I have one bonus slide if you need to stretch the time out, but this is really the presentation. John.
I don't have any bad questions. Oh, come on, I don't need a mic.
No, it was for, does anyone have any questions?
Hey! This is great. I just wanted to say it's really good. I was reading the latest ERP release notes and guide to rebuild everything. That 5-line cheat sheet looks in my mind very similar to what I read. Is it basically the same sort of commands, just your UEFI scripts?
Well, the old one was called UEFI build, and the new one is called EDK2 build.
But basically, if you were to substitute the commands, it would be the same sequence, right? People have been using typical ERP.
Yeah, you're changing to a different default configuration file.
Yeah.
Which was also always something you can specify explicitly anyway.
Yeah.
And you do have depending on your setup, you may need to point out where your repositories are located in your file system. But other than that, it's just a straight switch.
And then the plan would be for the next cycle, for the next ERP. Sorry, I came in late. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is the plan then that you will switch it all over for the next ERP cycle?
That is absolutely the plan. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And one last thing on the Vert platform as well, right? So there's vExpress. There's also the QEMU AAVMF platform.
Yep.
As well. Just to
our Vert package. That stays in EDK2.
Okay.
As does OVMF and the send bits of OVMF and the emulator package and those things I haven't ever even built actually.
Does git bisect work now? That's just my question. I was having problems with git bisect with the OpenPlatform package at EDK2. Is that still the case?
As in?
Well, the submodule tags weren't in the...
You can hear him. Come on, he's allowed.
The submodule tags weren't in core EDK2, so bisecting was sort of a painful process if we were trying to pick something out and keep the submodule instantly.
Well, we're not doing submodules anymore, right? So you're going to have the situation where if you have a change in main EDK2 that breaks an API, yeah, that's going to break bisect. That's not trivial to get around with this. That's hopefully not going to be something we do every day. And the fact that we now have platforms where we can verify this with open source, that's hopefully going to help drive a bit more of a, should we call it, strict attitude towards breaking APIs randomly. By which I always do mean internal APIs, because UEFI is UEFI.
So the wrapper scripts on top of UEFI, those, if some company has the Wrapper scripts on top of it, then you have to change your scripts for automation and stuff. Because the command is changed.
Yeah, but as I said, the actual syntax change is minimal. That they should really only need to specify the location of the repositories.
One open-ended question. So ARMS, ASM generic has always really enthused me in Linux for having a reference to how to do things. What do you think the next steps are to show platform vendors good hygiene, how they should be building their platforms to make it friendly for UEFI or for use cases that you have in mind?
So there's a few things coming there. I mean, one is just by getting more open source platforms, we can look at commonalities, we can see who is just duplicating code randomly. OpenPlatformPkg already helped ART get rid of, what, 3 or 4 different PCI host Dixie drivers for no good reason. So that's been really helpful. I expect we'll keep doing that. We have these separate repositories, right? That's not my long-term ideal situation. But we have the situation with non-OSI bits where some people cannot touch the repository if they're in there. And this is a community that's been around for a long time, and they've not been a traditional open source community. They're a bit terrified about this idea about, oh, where did all this code come from, and everything's going to break and it's going to be impossible to maintain this. Because they've only ever had one checkout of EDK2, one CPU support package, one driver support package, another driver support package, and that kind of thing. And they've done that, and they've tagged that, and then they've maintained that throughout the lifetime of the product. And then when they have, even a minor spin, but not a minor, but the next version of the same platform, they just start over again and do the same thing. So
Same bugs.
or different ones.
Well, often the same bugs.
Yeah.
So I'm somewhat of an outsider, so I would apologize if, I don't know, maybe just a little perspective difference. So I got why the split up was useful. One of the things that I've been interacting with trying to include this into AOSP for the high keyboards, it's been rough with so many different projects just to get the bootloaders built. And so now, firmware, sorry. But now just to, it's one of those things where having a project, getting a project into AOSP is very difficult.
These are 3 projects. There are 3 repositories for one project.
Right, but as far as AOSP matters, it's 3 projects to them.
Right.
And so the problem is that just adding one project into AOSP is a huge amount of escalation to get something added. I'm a little, sad because I know it's going to take a couple months before we'll be able to get the open project package deprecated and 2 more added. And it just, I feel like the complexity as a newcomer to this is very intense. And so I don't know if there's anything that can be done kind of to improve that at a larger level, just because having the tools, the UEFI tools is really helpful. But that aspect of having another project for being able to assemble the projects
But it's a situation we have, right? Because we're having to simultaneously support BIOS vendors who have their own trees and then bring their own drivers that they don't share with anyone. So we're kind of needing to keep something that supports both kinds of workflows. Long term, I'm really hoping we can just get the platform, EDK2 platforms merged into the main project, and then if you need binary blobs as well, then I'm hoping that that's going to be at least a little bit annoying for you in AOSP anyway. So I would hope that didn't make too much of a difference. And in fact, breaking that stuff out of that repository might help to get the clean one in instead.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Yeah, no, there's not a short-term solution for this. I'm hoping there is a long-term solution for this.
Is there any consideration for, and this is probably answers no, but something that would be convenient would be if open platform packages continued on but used the EDK2 platform code So if it merged that in, that lineage of that branch continued. Because otherwise, you know, for folks who don't want to rework their entire build systems for all these new projects, I get that this is more work that you probably just don't want to do. So,
well, A, it's something I want to do, and
Yeah.
B, it would mean we had 2 live repositories. I think that sounds like a
Well,
good idea.
not live, but cloned or mirrored, I guess.
But they're not compatible build strategies. Right? They're different. So, no, sorry.
Okay, all right, appreciate it.
Okay, are we at time? Any more questions? Okay, I can do the bonus slide, which is the UEFI support in the U-boot. So Rob Clark and Alice Graff and others keep filling away at extending the amount of U-boot, UEFI support in U-boot. And they're now able to run the UEFI shell binary as taken from EDK2 under U-boot, which means they nearly have all they need to be able to run UEFI SCT, which is the point at which I get very happy, because then we have SCT running across 2 completely separate implementations of the UEFI specification, which means we can start testing the test suite. So I'm really pleased with that. It's not working currently because SCT is heavily dependent on being able to write logs and status into a file system and reboot and keep doing things. And currently U-boot doesn't have fat file system write support. So that's probably the big deal that we're going to have to work on if we want to get this working properly. But you know, this is a pretty good start, and I'm quite pleased. Okay, thank you.